Have you ever wondered where our ideas about justice, science, or even our own identity come from? It wasn't by accident. For thousands of years, brilliant minds have been wrestling with the biggest questions of life, and their answers have built the very world we live in. Today, we're diving deep into the lives and ideas of the philosophers who fundamentally reshaped human civilization. This isn't just a history lesson. It's the story of us. Let's start our journey in ancient Athens, with a man who wrote nothing down himself, yet became the father of Western philosophy, Socrates. Picture him wandering the marketplace, not to sell goods, but to challenge people's most cherished beliefs. He wasn't trying to be annoying. He was pioneering a revolutionary method of inquiry, the Socratic method. By asking a series of probing questions, he revealed the inconsistencies in people's thinking and showed them that what they thought they knew, they often didn't. He famously said, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." This commitment to questioning everything, to seeking truth through rigorous dialogue, was a radical idea. It got him into a lot of trouble, ultimately leading to his execution. But his legacy was unstoppable. He taught us that the unexamined life is not worth living, a principle that kick-started a revolution in human thought. Socrates' most brilliant student was Plato. If Socrates was the spark, Plato was the fire that spread the light of philosophy across the world. Devastated by his mentor's death, Plato dedicated his life to creating a framework for a just and stable society, so that a tragedy like Socrates' execution could never happen again. He founded the Academy in Athens, the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. It's through Plato's writings, his famous dialogues, that we know most of what we know about Socrates. But Plato was a giant in his own right. His allegory of the cave is one of the most powerful metaphors ever conceived. He asks us to imagine prisoners chained in a cave, seeing only shadows on a wall, mistaking them for reality. For Plato, the job of a philosopher is to break free from the chains, step into the sunlight of truth, and then return to the cave to enlighten others. He also introduced the concept of the philosopher king, the idea that the ideal ruler is not the strongest or the wealthiest, but the wisest, someone who understands the true nature of justice and goodness. Plato's ideas about ideal forms, political theory, and the nature of reality have defined metaphysics and political thought for over 2 millennia. And who did Plato teach? None other than Aristotle. If Plato was the dreamer looking up at the world of perfect forms, Aristotle was the pragmatist with his feet firmly planted on the ground, observing the world around him. Aristotle was a true polymath, a pioneer of logic and empirical science. He believed that knowledge comes from experience and observation. He didn't just theorize. He dissected animals, studied plants, and cataloged the natural world. This empirical approach laid the groundwork for modern biology, physics, and countless other scientific disciplines. He invented formal logic, creating systems of syllogisms to build sound arguments, a framework we still use today to reason and debate. He wrote about everything: ethics, politics, poetry, biology, and metaphysics. While Plato sought a perfect world beyond our own, Aristotle taught us how to understand and navigate the world we actually live in. His influence on Western thought is so immense that for centuries, he was simply known as the philosopher. Let's fast forward nearly 2,000 years to the dawn of the modern era. The world has changed dramatically, but philosophy is about to take another giant leap forward with a French thinker named René Descartes. In a time of deep skepticism and scientific revolution, Descartes wanted to find a foundation for knowledge that was absolutely certain, something nobody could doubt. He decided to doubt everything: his senses, his memories, even the existence of the physical world. But in this sea of doubt, he found one unshakable truth. The very act of doubting proved that he, the doubter, must exist. And so, he uttered one of the most famous phrases in all of philosophy: cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. This was a monumental shift. It placed the individual mind, the thinking self, at the center of the philosophical universe. Descartes' rationalism, the idea that reason is the chief source and test of knowledge, ushered in the Age of Enlightenment and laid the philosophical foundations for the modern focus on individualism and consciousness. A century later, in the quiet German city of Königsberg, Another titan of thought emerged, Immanuel Kant. Kant took on the monumental task of resolving the great philosophical debate of his time. The clash between the rationalists like Descartes, who believed reason alone could lead to truth, and the empiricists who argued all knowledge comes from sensory experience. Kant's brilliant solution was a synthesis of both. He argued that while our knowledge begins with experience, our mind isn't just a blank slate. It actively structures our experiences with innate concepts like space-time and causality. He compared it to wearing colored glasses. We can only see the world through the tint of our own minds. But Kant's impact wasn't limited to metaphysics. He revolutionized ethics with his categorical imperative. He proposed a universal moral law: act only according to that maxim, whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. In simpler terms, if you wouldn't want everyone else to do the same thing in the same situation, then you shouldn't do it. This powerful idea established a basis for morality grounded in reason, not in divine command or personal feeling, and it continues to be a cornerstone of modern ethical thought. Finally, we arrive at one of philosophy's most provocative and misunderstood figures, Friedrich Nietzsche. Writing in the late 19th century, Nietzsche looked at the world Kant and others had built, a world of reason, Christian morality, and scientific progress, and he took a hammer to it. He famously declared, "God is dead," not as a triumphant boast, but as a diagnosis of a major cultural crisis. He believed that the decline of religious faith had created a vacuum of meaning, a void he called nihilism. Nietzsche challenged the very foundations of traditional morality, arguing that concepts like good and evil were not absolute truths but human inventions, often created by the weak to control the strong. Out of this critique, he introduced his concept of the Übermensch, or overman, a future human who would overcome nihilism by creating their own values, embracing life in all its joy and suffering, and living with artistic passion. Nietzsche's electrifying prose and radical ideas about psychology, power, and existentialism would profoundly influence not just philosophy, but art, literature, and our entire understanding of the human condition in the 20th century and beyond. From Socrates' simple questions in the Athenian Agora to Nietzsche's thunderous pronouncements, the journey of philosophy is the story of humanity's quest for self-understanding. These thinkers weren't just navel-gazing in ivory towers. Their ideas have real-world consequences. The Socratic method is the basis for our legal system's cross-examinations. Plato's quest for justice informs our political debates. Aristotle's logic is coded into the computers we use every day. Descartes' focus on the individual is at the heart of our modern sense of self. Kant's ethics shape our discussions on human rights, and Nietzsche's critiques force us to confront the deepest questions of meaning in a modern secular world. The ideas of these philosophers are not dusty relics of the past. They are the invisible architecture of our minds, the operating system of our civilization. By understanding them, we better understand the world and, more importantly, ourselves. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through the history of thought. If you found this exploration as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the ideas that shape our world. Let me know in the comments which philosopher's ideas resonate with you the most. Until next time, keep questioning.